Sandra Coleman took a carpenter named Leon James to her billionaire sister's wedding in Italy, and everyone made fun of her for bringing such a poor man. But when the rich groom saw Leon's face at the altar, he almost fainted because he recognized him as the president who everyone thought died in a coup 3 years ago. The fancy wedding was about to turn into a deadly fight. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it proves that powerful stories resonate everywhere. Sandra Coleman was a very successful businesswoman who ran a huge logistics company. Her family was one of the richest families in America, but Sandra had always been different from them. She didn't care much about showing off her money or looking down on poor people like her mother and sister did. Her younger sister Vesper was getting married to Jay Sheridan, a billionaire who owned technology companies all over the world. The wedding was happening at a beautiful old cathedral in Amalfi, Italy. Vesper had invited 200 of the richest and most powerful people in the world. The whole event cost about $10 million. Sandra decided to bring Leon James as her date to the wedding. Leon was a carpenter who made furniture in a small workshop in Pennsylvania. He was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily by himself after his wife died. Leon was poor, quiet, and humble. He had rough hands from working with wood all day, and he wore old clothes most of the time. When Sandra told her family she was bringing Leon to the wedding, her mother Catherine was horrified. Catherine couldn't believe her successful daughter would bring such a low-class man to such an important event. But Sandra didn't care what her mother thought. She had her own reasons for bringing Leon, reasons that nobody else knew about yet. On the day of the wedding, Sandra and Leon took a private ferry to the cathedral. Leon wore a rented tuxedo that didn't fit him perfectly. He looked uncomfortable and out of place. Sandra wore an expensive red dress and looked beautiful, but she held Leon's arm proudly as they walked into the cathedral. All the rich guests stared at them when they entered. People whispered mean things about Leon. They said he looked like a servant or a worker who had wandered into the wrong place. Some people laughed at Sandra for bringing such a poor date. Sandra's mother, Catherine, looked absolutely furious when she saw them. Sandra and Leon sat down in the front row because Sandra was the bride's sister. Catherine was sitting right next to them, and she refused to even look at Leon. She acted like he didn't exist. Other family members sitting nearby made rude comments about Leon's cheap tuxedo and his working-class appearance. Leon didn't say anything. He just sat quietly and didn't let the insults bother him. Sandra could tell that Leon was used to being looked down on by rich people. He had been living as a poor carpenter for 3 years now, and he had learned to ignore people's judgment. The wedding ceremony started. Everyone stood up when the bride appeared. Vesper looked stunning in her extremely expensive wedding dress. She walked down the aisle toward her groom, Jay Sheridan, who was waiting at the altar. Jay was a handsome young man who came from old money. His family had been rich and powerful for generations. The priest began the ceremony in Italian, and then switched to English. Vesper and Jay stood facing each other at the altar, holding hands and smiling. Everything seemed perfect for a few minutes. The ceremony was going exactly as planned. But then Jay's eyes wandered over a crowd of guests. He seemed to be looking for someone, maybe his parents or friends. His gaze landed on the front row where Sandra and Leon were sitting. Jay looked directly at Leon's face. Suddenly, Jay's entire body went stiff. His face turned completely white, like all the blood had drained out of it. His hands started shaking so badly that Vesper had to grip them tight to stop them from trembling. Jay's mouth fell open in shock. The papers he was holding, his wedding vows, fell out of his hands and scattered on the floor. Jay stared at Leon like he was seeing a ghost. His eyes were huge with fear and disbelief. He couldn't move or speak for several seconds. Everyone in the cathedral noticed that something was very wrong with the groom. The priest stopped talking. The guests started whispering, wondering what was happening. "Mr. President?" Jay's voice came out shaky and quiet at first. Then he said it louder, his voice filled with complete shock. "Sir? Mr. President James? Is that you?" The entire cathedral went silent. 200 rich people stopped moving and stopped breathing. Everyone stared at Leon. The priest froze in place. Vesper turned to look at Leon, and her face went pale too. Leon stood up slowly from his seat. As he stood, something changed about him completely. The humble, tired carpenter disappeared. His whole body language changed. He stood up straight and tall. His shoulders went back. His face became hard and serious. His eyes, which looked warm and kind before, now looked cold and dangerous. This was not a poor carpenter anymore. This was a man who used to command armies. "Hello, Jay," Leon said in a quiet but powerful voice that everyone in the cathedral could hear perfectly. "It's been 3 years. Jay was shaking all over now. "You're dead," he stammered. "You died in the coup. The palace was destroyed. Everyone said you were dead. They buried an empty coffin." "The reports of my death were wrong," Leon said calmly. "I'm very much alive." Complete chaos broke out in the cathedral. Guests started shouting questions at each other. Some people pulled out their phones to take pictures or record video. Someone screamed. The wedding photographer's camera flashed repeatedly. Everyone was talking at once, trying to figure out what was happening. But then things got much more dangerous. 6 men in dark suits suddenly appeared from different parts of the cathedral. They had been hiding among the guests or standing in shadows. They moved quickly and professionally toward the altar, forming a circle around Jay and Vespera. These men were clearly trained security or military. Each one reached inside their jacket, and everyone could tell they were reaching for guns. "Don't move," one of the men shouted at Leon. "Hands where we can see them." Sandra stood up next to Leon. She looked completely calm, not scared at all. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she said to the armed men in a steady voice. "Ma'am, step away from that man right now," the leader of the security team commanded. "No," Sandra said simply. She didn't move. Vespera finally spoke. She looked at Leon with pure hatred in her eyes. "You should have stayed dead," she said in an angry, vicious voice. "Probably," Leon agreed. "But dead men don't get to bring criminals to justice." "Justice?" Vespera laughed, but it was a mean, harsh laugh with no humor in it. "You want to talk about justice? You were going to destroy everything. Everything our families built over decades. Everything that made America powerful. I was going to stop you from selling America to foreign countries piece by piece," Leon said. "That's not the same thing." The lead security agent pulled out his gun. The other 5 men all pulled out their weapons too. 6 guns were now pointed at Leon. The wedding guests screamed and dove under the pews, trying to hide. The priest ran away from the altar. "Sir," the agent said to Jay, "step away from the target." "The target?" Leon raised his eyebrows. "Is that what you're calling me now?" Sandra moved slightly, putting herself between Leon and the nearest gunman. "You really don't want to shoot those guns in here," she warned the security team. "Lady, I don't know who you are," the agent said, "but you need to move right now before you get hurt." "My name is Sandra Coleman," she replied in a calm voice. "This is my sister's wedding. I strongly suggest you put those guns away before someone gets killed and ruins this beautiful cathedral." "Sandra." Catherine Coleman's voice was high-pitched with panic. She was still sitting in the front row, frozen with shock. "What are you doing? Get away from that man. He's dangerous." "No, Mother," Sandra said without looking at her mother. "I'm exactly where I need to be." Leon looked at Sandra with new understanding in his eyes, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "How long have you known?" he asked her quietly. 3 years, Sandra answered. "Since the day you supposedly died. You've been watching me this whole time?" "Protecting you," Sandra corrected him. "There's a big difference." Vespera's face twisted with rage when she heard this. "You," she shouted at her sister. "You've been helping him? You betrayed our family." "I betrayed your criminal conspiracy," Sandra shot back. "That's not the same as betraying family." "Kill them both," Vespera ordered the security agents. Her voice was cold and cruel. "Do it right now. I don't care about the witnesses." But before the agents could shoot, the big wooden doors of cathedrals suddenly burst open with a loud bang. More armed people rushed into the church, but these weren't wearing business suits. They were wearing black tactical gear and helmets, and they carried military-grade rifles. They moved like professional soldiers. "Drop your weapons," a woman's voice commanded. She was leading this new group of fighters. She was tall and looked extremely dangerous. "You're completely surrounded. Drop your guns now." The security agents looked around in confusion and growing fear. Red laser dots appeared on their chests, coming from sniper rifles. Someone had positioned snipers in the cathedral's upper balconies. The 6 security agents were completely outnumbered and outgunned. They had walked into a trap. "What is this?" Jay demanded. His voice was shaking with fear. The confident, powerful billionaire was gone. He looked like a scared child now. "This," Sandra explained in a calm voice, "is what happens when you assassinate a president and think you got away with it." Leon walked slowly toward the altar. His hands were visible but not raised in surrender. He moved like a man who knew exactly how dangerous he was and didn't need to prove it to anyone. The security agents' guns followed him, but none of them dared to shoot. They were too confused and scared about what was happening. "Let me tell everyone here something important," Leon said. His voice filled the entire cathedral, without him even raising it. 3 years ago, I discovered that members of my own government, people I trusted, were selling our country piece by piece to foreign powers. They were selling military secrets to China, intelligence networks to Russia, strategic resources and technology to anyone who had enough money to pay. They called themselves the architects. He looked directly at Vespera and Jay. "You two are both part of this group. Your families have been part of it for years. At least 30 people in this cathedral right now are architects or work for them." The guests gasped and started talking loudly. Some people tried to run for the doors, but Sandra's tactical team blocked all the exits. No one was leaving. "That's a lie," Jay shouted. "You're insane. You had a mental breakdown. That's why the government had to remove you." "The government didn't remove me," Leon said. "You tried to kill me. You planted a bomb in the presidential palace. You killed 17 Secret Service agents and 23 staff members that day. Good people who were just doing their jobs." Vesper smiled cruelly. "But we didn't kill you, did we? You ran away like a coward. You abandoned your country and hid like a scared rat." "I did run," Leon admitted, "because I had an 8-year-old daughter to protect. You threatened to kill Lily if I didn't disappear. So I made a deal with someone I trusted. I faked my death, gave up my power, and became nobody. I thought that would keep my daughter safe. And it did keep her safe," Sandra added. "For 3 years, Leon lived quietly as a carpenter. He raised his daughter in peace. He didn't bother anyone. He let you win. So why come back now?" Vesper demanded. "Why show yourself at my wedding?" "Because you got greedy," Leon said. "You weren't happy just controlling things from the shadows. You wanted to put Jay in the White House. You wanted direct presidential power again. And to do that, you needed to make sure I was really dead. You've been searching for me for months. You were getting close to finding me." Sandra continued the explanation. "So Leon and I decided it was time to stop hiding. We decided to bring the fight to you instead of waiting for you to come to us." "You and Leon?" Catherine Coleman stood up, looking horrified at her daughter. "You've been working with him?" "For 3 years. "Yes, Mother," Sandra said. "My logistics company has been protecting Leon and tracking the architects. We've been gathering evidence of every crime you've all committed." "Evidence?" Vespera said mockingly. "You think anyone will believe you? We control the media. We control the courts. We control everything." "You used to control everything," Leon corrected her. "But you made a mistake. You got so confident that you brought all your top people to this wedding. Everyone important to your organization is in this room right now, which makes things very convenient for us." The tactical team started moving through the cathedral, pointing to specific guests. Him, her, those 3 in the back, that man hiding under the pew. They were identifying members of the architects throughout the crowd. "This is illegal," one wealthy man shouted. "You have no authority to do this." "Actually, I do," Leon said. "A president doesn't stop being president just because people think he's dead. I never officially resigned. which means every action your puppet government has taken for the last 3 years is legally invalid. Jay finally found his courage again. You can't prove any of this. You're just a crazy man with paranoid delusions. No one will believe you. Sandra smiled. It was not a nice smile. That's where you're wrong. We've been recording everything. Phone calls, bank transfers, secret meetings. For 3 years, my company has been documenting every single crime the architects committed. She pulled out her phone and held it up. And guess what? This wedding is being live-streamed right now. Millions of people around the world are watching the ceremony. They all just heard Leon explain who you really are. They heard Vesper admit to planting a bomb. This is all going out live. The blood drained from Jay's face again. He pulled out his own phone and checked. It was true. The wedding livestream was active. Millions of viewers were watching right now. The viewer count was climbing fast as people shared the link. This was becoming the most watched event on the internet. No, Jay whispered. No, no, no. He tried to cancel the stream, but it was locked. Sandra's team had hacked his phone. He couldn't stop the broadcast. You're all under arrest, Leon announced at the cathedral. Every single architect in this room. You're going to face trial for treason, conspiracy, murder, and about 50 other crimes. You can't arrest us. Vesper screamed. You're nobody. You're a dead man. You have no power. I have enough power, Leon said quietly. His voice was cold and final. And I have proof of everything you've done. The 6 security agents finally lowered their guns. They realized they were beaten. The tactical team moved in and took their weapons away. Other soldiers started moving through the crowd, detaining specific people. Catherine Coleman was crying now. Sandra, how could you do this to your own family? How could you commit treason against your own country? Sandra shot back. You've been selling America's secrets for money, Mother. You helped murder innocent people. You tried to kill a president. And you asked me how I could stop you. We were making America stronger. Catherine insisted. We were building real power. You were destroying everything America stands for, Sandra said. And you know it. Leon walked up to Jay and Vespera. 2 soldiers stood behind him, ready to act if needed. You almost got away with it, he told them. If you hadn't gotten greedy, if you hadn't tried to put Jay in the White House, I would have let you go. I would have stayed dead. But you couldn't leave well enough alone. I should have made sure you were really dead, Vespera hissed. I should have burned your body myself. Probably, Leon agreed. But you didn't. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. The tactical team put handcuffs on Jay and Vespera. They took them away from the altar, along with Catherine Coleman and about 20 other guests. The remaining guests sat in shocked silence, not sure what they were allowed to do. Sandra stood next to Leon, watching her family being arrested. She looked sad but determined. I'm sorry it had to be this way, she said to him. Don't be sorry, Leon replied. You did the right thing. You've been doing the right thing for 3 years. What happens now? Sandra asked. Now, Leon said, we take down the rest of the architects. Everyone who wasn't at this wedding. We use the evidence you've gathered to destroy their entire organization. We give America back to the people. And then, Leon smiled for the first time since entering the cathedral. And then I go back to being a carpenter. I go back to raising my daughter in peace. I've had enough of being president. The country will want you back, Sanders said. When they learn the truth about what happened, they'll demand that you return to the White House. Then they'll be disappointed, Leon said firmly. I did my duty. I warned everyone about the architects. I exposed a conspiracy. But I'm not going back to that life. I just want to be Lily's father. That's all I ever wanted. Sandra looked at him with respect and something else. Maybe admiration. Maybe something deeper. You're a rare man, Leon James. Most people who had presidential power would never give it up. Most people who had presidential power never had to fake their own death and live in poverty for 3 years, Leon replied. That changes your perspective on what's really important. The cathedral was slowly emptying now as the tactical team escorted people out. The beautiful wedding decorations looked strange and out of place now that the ceremony had been destroyed. The expensive flowers and gold decorations seemed meaningless after everything that had happened. One of Sandra's soldiers approached them. "Ma'am, we have everyone secured. What are your orders?" "Take the architects to the holding facility," Sandra instructed. "Keep them separated. No communication with the outside world. We'll begin formal legal proceedings tomorrow." "Yes, ma'am." The soldier walked away to carry out the orders. Leon looked at Sandra with new understanding. "You're not just a logistics tycoon, are you? That's a cover story." Sandra smiled slightly. "My company does handle logistics, but we also provide private security and intelligence services to certain clients. We're very good at what we do. You've been running a private intelligence operation to protect me and investigate the architects," Leon said. "For 3 years. That must have cost millions of dollars. Why did you do it?" Sandra was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because 3 years ago, I discovered what my family was really doing. I found evidence of their crimes by accident. I was horrified. I wanted to stop them, but I didn't know how. Then I heard about the coup and your death. I realized the architects had killed you to protect their conspiracy." She looked Leon in the eyes. "But I didn't believe you were really dead. Something about the official story didn't make sense. So I started investigating. I spent months searching. I finally found you living under a fake name in Pennsylvania, working as a carpenter. I watched you from a distance for weeks. I saw how you were with your daughter. I saw that you were a good man who had been destroyed by evil people. I decided then that I would help you get justice, whether you wanted it or not. So you've been protecting me without me even knowing," Leon said. "Watching over me and Lily." "Yes," Sandra admitted. "I made sure the architects never got close to you. Whenever they sent someone to investigate you, my people redirected them or eliminated the threat. I kept you safe." "Why didn't you just tell me?" Leon asked. "Why wait 3 years?" "Because you weren't ready," Sandra said simply. "You were broken, Leon. The coup destroyed you. You'd given up. If I had approached you 3 years ago and asked you to fight back, you would have said no. You would have run away to protect Lily. So I waited. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I waited until I was certain we could win. And I waited until you were strong enough to face your enemies again." Leon was silent for a long moment. "You're right," he finally said. 3 years ago, I would have run. I was too scared and too broken. But now you're ready," Sandra finished. "Now you're strong enough to see this through." They stood together in the empty cathedral, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be a perfect wedding. Outside, the sun was setting over the Mediterranean Sea. Inside, 2 people who had both sacrificed everything for justice stood side by side. "What do we do about the live stream?" Leon asked. "The whole world just watched this happen. By tomorrow, everyone will be talking about it." "Let them talk," Sandra said. "The truth is out now. We have evidence to back up everything we said. The architects can't hide anymore. Their power was built on secrecy. Now that everyone knows they exist, they're finished. Some of them will escape," Leon warned. "The ones who weren't at the wedding. They'll go underground. They'll try to rebuild." "Then we'll hunt them down," Sandra said firmly. "Every single one. However long it takes." Leon looked at her with respect. "You become quite the warrior." Sandra smiled. "I learned from the best. I've been studying you for 3 years, remember? I know how you think. I know how you fight. You taught me everything I needed to know, even though you never knew you were teaching me." "We make a good team," Leon said. "Yes," Sandra agreed. "We do." One of Sandra's soldiers came back into cathedral. "Ma'am, the prisoners are secured. The evidence packages have been sent to every major news organization in the world. The story is spreading fast. What's our next move?" Sandra looked at Leon. "What do you want to do?" Leon thought for a moment. "I want to see my daughter. I want to hold Lily and tell her that everything is going to be okay now, that we don't have to hide anymore, that the bad people can't hurt us." "Where is she?" Sandra asked. "She's with a friend in Switzerland," Leon said. "A former Secret Service agent I trust. He's been taking care of her while I came to Italy. I told him I'd be back tomorrow. Then that's where we go next, Sandra decided. We'll take my private jet. We'll pick up Lily and bring her somewhere safe. Then we can figure out our next steps. Our next steps? Leon raised his eyebrows. You're staying with me? If you'll have me, Sandra said. I've spent 3 years protecting you from a distance. I like to keep protecting you, but maybe do it properly this time. As your partner, not your secret guardian. Leon smiled. It was a real, genuine smile this time. I like that. Lily will like you. She needs a good role model in her life. Someone strong and brave. I hope I can be that for her, Sandra said. They walked out of the cathedral together. Outside, tactical vehicles were parked everywhere. Soldiers were loading prisoners into armored trucks. News helicopters were circling overhead, filming everything. The wedding had turned into the biggest news story in the world. As Leon and Sandra walked to Sandra's waiting SUV, reporters shouted questions at them. Mr. President, are you really alive? Are the accusations against the Coleman family true? Will you return to the White House? Leon ignored all the questions. He got into the SUV with Sandra, and they drove away toward the private airfield where Sandra's jet was waiting. Behind them, the chaos continued, but they were leaving it all behind for now. Inside the vehicle, Leon closed his eyes for a moment. He was exhausted. The last 3 years had been the hardest of his life. Living in hiding, working as a carpenter, always looking over his shoulder, always worried that the architects would find him and kill him and Lily. But it was over now. The secret was out. The architects were exposed. He could stop hiding. Are you okay? Sandra asked him gently. I'm tired, Leon admitted, but I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I can breathe. You can more than breathe, Sandra said. You can live again. Really live. What about you? Leon asked. Your family is going to prison. Your mother, your sister, probably other relatives too. That must be hard for you. Sandra looked out the window at the beautiful Italian countryside passing by. It is hard, she admitted. I love my family, even though they're terrible people. But I love my country more. I love justice more. I made my choice 3 years ago, and I don't regret it. You gave up everything to do the right thing, Leon said. Your family, your reputation, your life as you knew it. So, did you, Sandra pointed out. You gave up the presidency. You gave up your power and your identity. You became nobody to protect your daughter. We're not so different, you and I. Leon thought about that. She was right. They had both sacrificed everything for what they believed was right. They had both lost their old lives and built new ones. And now they had found each other. Two broken people who had become whole again through their shared mission. What happens after we get Lily? Leon asked. Then we disappear again, Sandra said. Not because we're hiding, but because we choose to. We let the government sort out the mess. We let the courts prosecute the architects. We've done our part. The rest is up to other people. And then, Sandra smiled. Then you go back to being a carpenter, and I go back to running my company. And maybe we see each other sometimes. Maybe we become friends. Maybe we become more than friends. Who knows? Leon smiled too. I like that. Lily and I could use more good people in our lives. They drove to the airport in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Sandra's private jet was ready and waiting. They boarded quickly and took off towards Switzerland. As the plane climbed into the evening sky, Leon looked down at Italy disappearing below them. Somewhere down there, his enemies were being taken to prison. The architects were being destroyed. Justice was being served. But up here in the sky, Leon felt peaceful. He was going to see his daughter again. He was going to hug Lily and tell her that they were safe now. That daddy's enemies couldn't hurt them anymore. And he wasn't alone anymore. He had Sandra now, a partner who understood him and who had proven she would do anything to protect him and help him. That meant more to him than all the power and prestige of being president had ever meant. As the plane flew through the darkening sky towards Switzerland, Leon closed his eyes and allowed himself to rest. For the first time in 3 years, he slept without nightmares. While Leon was sleeping on the plane, the world was exploding with the news of his return. The wedding livestream had been watched by over 50 million people before it was finally shut down. But by then, it was too late to contain the story. The video had been recorded and shared millions of times across social media. Everyone was talking about the ghost president who had returned from the dead. News channels around the world interrupted their regular programming to discuss what had happened. Political experts were brought on to analyze the situation. Legal scholars debated whether Leon's presidency was still valid. Conspiracy theorists had a field day with the idea that a secret group called the Architects had controlled the government for years. But Leon didn't care about any of that. When the plane landed in Switzerland, he rushed to the safe house where Lily was waiting. The house was in the mountains, far from any cities. It was a beautiful wooden chalet that looked like something from a fairy tale. Lily was standing on the front porch when they arrived. She was 8 years old with long dark hair and her father's eyes. When she saw Leon getting out of the car, she screamed with joy and ran down the steps toward him. "Daddy," she shouted. Leon caught her in his arms and lifted her up, hugging her tight. "Hey, baby girl, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, Daddy. Mr. Peterson said you had to go to Italy for something important." "Was it really important?" "Yes, sweetheart. It was very important. But it's all done now. We don't have to hide anymore." Lily pulled back to look at her father's face. "Really? We can go home." "We can go home," Leon confirmed. "Well, maybe not to our old home, but we can find a new home, a better home, and we don't have to be scared anymore." Lily saw Sandra standing nearby and became shy. "Who's that lady, Daddy?" "This is Sandra," Leon said. "She's a friend. A very good friend who helped Daddy with his important work." "Sandra, this is my daughter Lily." Sandra smiled warmly at the little girl. "Hi, Lily. It's nice to finally meet you. Your daddy talks about you all the time." "He does?" Lily looked pleased. "All the time," Sandra confirmed. "He showed me pictures of you. He told me you're really good at drawing." "I am," Lily said excitedly. "Do you want to see my drawings? I have lots of them inside." "I'd love to see them," Sandra said genuinely. They went inside the chalet. Mr. Peterson, the former Secret Service agent who had been watching Lily, greeted them. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had worked for Leon during his presidency and was one of the few people Leon had trusted with the truth about his survival. "Mr. President," Peterson said, shaking Leon's hand. "I saw what happened in Italy. It's all over the news. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Peterson. Thank you for taking care of Lily." "It was my honor, sir. She's a wonderful child." They spent the evening in the chalet. Lily showed Sandra all her drawings and told her stories about school and her friends. Sandra listened patiently and asked questions, making Lily feel important and heard. Leon watched them interact and felt grateful that Sandra was so good with children. After Lily went to bed, Leon and Sandra sat by the fireplace and talked quietly. Mr. Peterson had gone to his room to give them privacy. "She's amazing," Sandra said. "You've raised her well." "I try," Leon said. "It's been hard doing it alone. Her mother died when Lily was 5. Car accident. Then 3 years ago, I had to fake my death and disappear. Lily has been through so much. But she's tough. Tougher than me, I think. What will you tell her about what happened?" Sandra asked. "Does she know you used to be president?" "She knows I used to have an important job," Leon said. "But she was too young to really understand what being president meant. She just knows that bad people try to hurt us, so we had to hide. Now I need to explain to her that we're safe." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire. Outside, snow was starting to fall on the mountains. It was peaceful here, far from the chaos happening in the rest of the world. "My phone has been ringing nonstop," Sandra said, looking at her device. "Everyone wants to talk to me. The media, the government, my lawyers, even some of the architects who weren't at the wedding trying to make deals." "What are you telling them?" Leon asked. "Nothing yet," Sandra said. "I'm waiting to see how things develop. The evidence we released is solid. The prosecutors will have everything they need to convict the architects. But there will be a lot of political fighting. People will take sides. It's going to get ugly. It always does, Leon said wearily. That's why I don't want to go back to politics. I've seen enough ugliness to last a lifetime. His phone rang. Leon looked at the screen and frowned. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Sandra warned. It could be anyone. But Leon answered anyway. He listened for a moment and his face went pale. When? He asked. Then, I understand. We'll be careful. He hung up and looked at Sandra with worry in his eyes. That was a contact in the FBI. He wanted to warn me. Not all the architects were captured in Italy. Some of them escaped the sweep. And they're not happy about what we did. How unhappy? Sandra asked, though she already knew the answer. They put out a contract on my life, Leon said. $2 million. They want me dead within 48 hours. Sandra didn't look surprised. I expected this. We embarrassed them publicly. We destroyed their organization. They'll want revenge. It's not just me, Leon said quietly. The contract includes Lily. Sandra's expression became cold and hard. Then we move. Right now. This safe house might be compromised. Where do we go? Leon asked. I have other safe houses, Sandra said. Places even my own team doesn't know about. We take Lily and Peterson, and we disappear. Really disappear this time. They woke up Lily and Peterson and explained they had to leave immediately. Lily was scared and confused, but she trusted her father. They packed quickly and left the chalet within 20 minutes. Sandra drove them through the snowy mountains in a four-wheel drive vehicle. They drove for 3 hours, taking back roads and avoiding main highways. Finally, they arrived at another house, this one even more remote than the first. It was an old fortress built into the side of a mountain. It had thick stone walls and narrow windows. It looked like it could survive a siege. This is one of my family's old properties, Sandra explained as they went inside. It's been in the Coleman family for 200 years. No one except me knows I still own it. The inside of the fortress was surprisingly comfortable. It had been modernized with heating and electricity, though it still retained its medieval character. There were fireplaces in every room and heavy wooden furniture. They got Lily settled in a bedroom and made sure she felt safe. Peterson stood guard by the front door, checking his weapons. Sandra and Leon went to a room that had been converted into a security center. Multiple screens showed camera feeds from around the property. We can see anyone approaching from miles away, Sandra explained. And these walls are 3 feet thick. We're safe here. For how long? Leon asked. The architects have resources. They'll find us eventually. Then we need to go on offense, Sandra said. We can't just hide and hope they give up. We need to find them first and eliminate the threat. Eliminate? Leon raised his eyebrows. You mean kill them? Sandra looked at him seriously. They want to kill you and your daughter, Leon. What do you think we should do? Ask them politely to stop? Leon was quiet. He had been a president, not a soldier. He had commanded armies, but he had never personally killed anyone. The idea of becoming an assassin made him uncomfortable. Sandra saw his hesitation. I know this isn't easy for you. You're not a killer. But these people are. They've already killed dozens of innocent people. They'll kill dozens more if we don't stop them, including Lily. I know, Leon said. I became a carpenter because I want to get away from all the violence and death. I wanted a peaceful life. You can have that life, Sandra said gently. But first, we have to survive long enough to get there. We have to protect Lily. That's the priority. Leon nodded slowly. You're right. Lily is the priority. What do we do? Sandra pulled up information on one of the screens. We start with the architects who weren't at the wedding, the ones who put out the contract on your life. I've been tracking them for 3 years. I know where most of them are. She pointed to a photo on the screen. This is Marcus Hale. He's one of the senior architects. Very wealthy, very connected. He runs their financial operations. He's currently hiding at his estate in Scotland. Why Scotland? Leon asked. Because Scotland doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States for certain crimes. He thinks he's safe there. Is he? Sandra smiled grimly. No, because I'm not going to arrest him. I'm going to make him talk. I'm going to get the names and locations of every remaining architect, and then we're going to take them all down. How do we get to him? His estate will be heavily guarded. We don't go to his estate, Sandra said. We lure him out. Marcus has a weakness. He collects rare art. There's an auction happening in London tomorrow night. A medieval painting is being sold that Marcus has wanted for years. He won't be able to resist attending. So we grab him at the auction? Exactly. My team is already in London preparing. We leave tomorrow morning. Peterson will stay here with Lily. Leon looked uncertain. I don't like leaving Lily again so soon. She'll be safer here with Peterson than traveling with us, Sandra pointed out. And the faster we deal with the architects, the faster Lily can have a normal life. Leon knew she was right, but it still hurt to leave his daughter again. He went to Lily's room and found her already asleep. He kissed her forehead gently. I promise I'll come back, he whispered to his sleeping daughter. And when I do, all the bad people will be gone. You'll be safe forever. The next morning, Leon and Sandra flew to London in a small private plane. They arrived in the afternoon and went to a hotel where Sandra's tactical team was staying. There were 6 team members, all former Special Forces soldiers who worked for Sandra's company. The team leader was a woman named Maria Cortez. She was tough and professional, with short dark hair and cold eyes. Ms. Coleman, she greeted Sandra. Everything is ready for tonight. Good, Sandra said. Show us the plan. Maria spread out blueprints of the auction house on a table. The auction starts at 8 p.m. Marcus Hale will be there, along with about 200 other rich collectors. Security will be tight, but not military level. We've identified all the exits and security camera positions. She pointed to the blueprints. We'll position team members at these 3 exits. When Marcus leaves after the auction, we'll grab him as he's getting into his car. It'll look like a normal kidnapping. No one will connect it to you. What if he doesn't come alone? Leon asked. He'll probably have bodyguards. He will, Maria confirmed. Our intel says he travels with 4 bodyguards. We'll handle them. Without killing them if possible, Sandra added. I don't want innocent security people dying because they're just doing their jobs. Understood, Maria said. We use non-lethal methods unless we have no choice. They spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. Sandra and Leon would attend the auction as bidders, using fake identities. They needed to confirm that Marcus was actually there before the team made their move. That evening, Sandra and Leon dressed in expensive evening wear. Sandra wore a black dress and diamond earrings. Leon wore a tailored tuxedo that actually fit him this time. They looked like they belonged at a high society art auction. They arrived at the auction house at 7:30. The building was a beautiful old mansion in central London. Inside, wealthy collectors walked around looking at art pieces that would be auctioned later. Waiters carried trays of champagne and expensive appetizers. Leon and Sandra mingled with the crowd, pretending to be interested in the art. They were both nervous, but they hid it well. They had to make sure no one suspected who they really were. At 7:50, Marcus Hale arrived. He was a tall man in his 60s with white hair and an arrogant expression. He wore an expensive suit and walked like he owned the place. 4 large men in dark suits followed him closely, his bodyguards. Target confirmed. Sandra whispered into a tiny microphone hidden in her jewelry. He's here. Copy that. Maria's voice replied in the tiny earpiece Sandra wore. We're in position. The auction began at 8 p.m. Leon and Sandra sat in the back row, watching. Various paintings and sculptures were brought out and auctioned off for ridiculous amounts of money. Rich people competed with each other, driving up prices just to prove they had more money than everyone else. Finally, the medieval painting that Marcus wanted was brought out. The auctioneer described it as a rare 13th century work showing a battle scene. The starting bid was £500,000. Marcus immediately bid. 1 million, he said loudly. Other bidders competed against him, but Marcus kept raising his bid. He was determined to win. Finally, at £3 million, Everyone else dropped out. Marcus had won his painting. He looked extremely satisfied with himself as he signed the paperwork to complete the purchase. He arranged to have the painting delivered to his estate in Scotland. The auction ended at 10 p.m. Guests started leaving. Marcus and his bodyguards walked toward the exit. Leon and Sandra followed at a distance, being careful not to be noticed. Marcus's car was waiting outside, a black Rolls-Royce. His bodyguards checked the area carefully before allowing Marcus to approach the vehicle. Everything seemed safe to them, but as Marcus reached the car door, 3 vans suddenly pulled up, blocking the street. Sandra's tactical team jumped out, moving fast. They fired tranquilizer darts at Marcus's bodyguards. All 4 bodyguards collapsed within seconds. Marcus tried to run, but Maria Cortez tackled him from behind. She was incredibly strong and fast. She had Marcus on the ground and handcuffed before he could even shout for help. "What is this?" Marcus demanded. "Do you know who I am? I'll have you all killed." "We're counting on it," Maria said coldly. She put a hood over Marcus's head and threw him into one of the vans. The whole operation took less than 30 seconds. By the time other guests came outside to see what was happening, the vans were already driving away. The only evidence left behind were 4 unconscious bodyguards. Sandra and Leon walked away from the scene calmly, like they were just normal guests leaving the auction. They got into their own car and drove to a different location, where Sandra's team was taking Marcus. The location was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of London. It was dark and cold inside. Marcus had been tied to a chair in the middle of the empty space. The hood had been removed from his head, and he looked around frantically. "Who are you people?" he demanded. "What do you want?" "Sandra," and Leon walked out of the shadows. When Marcus saw Leon's face, his eyes went wide with shock and fear. "No," Marcus whispered. "You're dead. I saw the reports. You died in the coup. You should know better than to trust reports," Leon said. "You architects wrote those reports yourselves." "We're going to make this very simple," Sandra said. "You're going to tell us everything. Names, locations, bank accounts, plans, everything about the architects. And you're going to tell us who put out the contract on Leon's life." Marcus laughed, though it sounded forced. "You think I'll betray my associates? We built something that will outlast all of us. You can't stop it." "We already did stop it," Leon said. "Most of the architects are in prison right now. Your organization is finished. We're just cleaning up the last few loose ends." "Then why do you need me?" Marcus asked. "Because some of those loose ends want to kill my daughter," Leon said, and his voice became cold as ice. "I need to know who they are so I can stop them." Marcus saw the look in Leon's eyes and became genuinely frightened. "If I talk, they'll kill me." "If you don't talk, we'll kill you," Sandra said flatly. "Choose." Marcus thought about it. He was a businessman, not a soldier. He wasn't brave or loyal. He was just greedy. And he valued his own life more than he valued the architect's. "All right," he said finally. "I'll talk, but I want protection. Witness protection. A new identity. Money to live on. You'll get a prison cell and nothing else," Sandra said. "But you'll live. That's more than the architects will give you if they find out you betrayed them." Marcus realized he had no choice. He started talking. He gave them names and locations. He told them about bank accounts and secret meeting places. He explained how the architects communicated and how they moved money. He told them everything. Sandra recorded all of it on her phone. The information Marcus gave them was incredibly valuable. With this, they could track down every remaining architect. Finally, Leon asked the most important question. "Who put out the contract on my life? Who specifically ordered it?" Marcus hesitated. This answer seemed to scare him more than anything else. "You won't believe me," he said. "Try us," Sandra said. Marcus looked at Leon with something like pity. "It was Marcus Hale," he said. Leon stared at him. "What?" "Not me," Marcus said quickly. "The contract was put out in my name, but I didn't order it. Someone else in the architects did it and used my name. They're setting me up to take the fall." "Who?" Leon demanded. "Who set you up?" "I don't know for certain," Marcus admitted. But I have a suspicion. There's only one person high up enough in the organization to do something like this without anyone else knowing. Who? Sandra asked impatiently. Marcus looked at her sadly. Your uncle, Thomas Coleman. Sandra's face went white. No, Uncle Thomas would never. He's not part of this. He's a professor. He teaches history at Harvard. He has nothing to do with the architects. That's what everyone thinks, Marcus said. That's what makes him so effective. Thomas Coleman is actually the founding member of the architects. He created the organization 40 years ago. He's been controlling everything from the beginning. Sandra looked like she might faint. She sat down heavily on a crate. Uncle Thomas, she whispered. But he was always so kind to me. He encouraged me to think for myself. He taught me about justice and doing what's right. He taught you those things so you would never suspect him, Marcus said. Thomas Coleman is a genius at manipulation. He probably suspected you might discover the architects eventually, so he shaped you into someone who would value justice. That way, if you ever found out, you'd focus your attention on obvious criminals like your mother and sister, not on him. Leon looked at Sandra with concern. Are you okay? Sandra took a deep breath. I'm fine. I can't believe I didn't see it. I spent 3 years investigating the architects, and I never once suspected Uncle Thomas. No one does, Marcus said. That's why he's so dangerous. He's been hiding in plain sight for decades. While everyone focused on the obvious power players like Catherine and Vespera, Thomas was pulling all the strings from his university office. Where is he now? Leon asked. I don't know exactly, Marcus said, but he always stays at his vacation house in Switzerland when things get dangerous. It's in the same mountain range where you were hiding with your daughter. Leon and Sandra looked at each other with horror. He knows where Lily is, Leon said. They ran out of the warehouse and jumped into their car. Sandra drove as fast as she could toward the airport while calling Peterson on her phone. Peterson, she shouted when he answered. Get Lily and get out of that house right now. Thomas Coleman is an architect. He might be coming for you. But the line went dead. Sandra tried calling again. No answer. Drive faster. Leon urged desperately. They made it to the airport in record time. Sandra's jet was already waiting, engines running. They took off immediately, flying towards Switzerland at maximum speed. The flight took 2 hours. For Leon, it felt like 2 years. He sat rigid in his seat, his hands clenched into fists, imagining every terrible thing that might be happening to his daughter. She's okay, Sandra kept saying, trying to convince herself as much as Leon. Peterson is a trained agent. He'll protect her. She's okay. But when they landed in Switzerland and drove to the fortress, they found the front door open. The ancient would have been blown apart by explosives. Inside, they found Peterson lying on the floor in a pool of blood. He had been shot multiple times. He was still alive, but barely. Peterson. Leon knelt beside him. Where's Lily? Where's my daughter? Peterson could barely speak. They took her. Thomas Coleman had a team. Too many of them. I'm sorry, sir. Don't talk, Leon said, tears running down his face. Save your strength. We'll get you to a hospital. But Peterson shook his head weakly. Too late for me. But Lily's still alive, heard Thomas talking. Taking her to his house. Wants to use her as leverage against you. Peterson's eyes closed. He stopped breathing. Sandra checked his pulse. He's gone. Leon stood up slowly. His face was no longer sad. It was filled with pure rage. The humble carpenter was completely gone now. In his place was something dangerous. A father whose child had been taken. Where's Thomas Coleman's house? Leon asked in a voice that was cold and deadly. About 20 miles from here, Sandra said. She understood what Leon was feeling. We'll get her back, Leon. I promise. Yes, Leon agreed. We will, and then I'm going to kill Thomas Coleman with my bare hands. They got back in the car and drove into the night, heading toward the confrontation that would end this war once and for all. Listen, if you're still here, it means you're invested. You want to see what happens next. But here's the reality. Most people watch stories like this and scroll away without subscribing. They enjoy it, then vanish. If this story actually matters to you, if you genuinely care about how it ends, hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. Otherwise, you'll probably forget this channel exists and miss all the other incredible stories I share. Thomas Coleman's vacation house was not really a house at all. It was a compound built into the mountain, designed like a military bunker. It had been constructed during the Cold War as a fallback position in case of nuclear war. Thomas had bought it 20 years ago and modernized it, turning it into a fortress. Sandra and Leon parked their car a mile away from the compound and approached on foot through the snow. They had brought weapons from Sandra's security team, pistols and tactical gear. Neither of them had much combat experience, but they didn't care. They were going to get Lily back no matter what. As they got closer to the compound, they saw it was heavily guarded. Men with rifles patrolled the perimeter. Searchlights swept across the snowy ground. This wasn't going to be easy. "We need a plan," Sandra whispered. "We can't just walk in there." "Why not?" Leon asked. "Thomas wants me. I'll trade myself for Lily." "That's insane. He'll just kill you both." "Not if we do it right," Leon said. "Thomas is arrogant. He'll want to talk first. He'll want to explain how clever he's been. That will give us time to act." "It's too risky." "It's the only way," Leon insisted. "I'm not leaving here without my daughter." Sandra looked at him and realized arguing was useless. Leon had made up his mind. "Okay," she finally said. "We'll do it your way. But I'm coming with you." They walked up to the main gate of the compound. Guards immediately pointed rifles at them. "Stop right there," one guard shouted. "I'm Leon James," Leon said loudly. "Thomas Coleman is expecting me. He has my daughter." The guards looked surprised. One of them spoke into a radio. After a moment, the gate opened. "Come with us," the guard said. They were searched for weapons. Sandra and Leon had expected this, so they had left their guns in the car. The guards found nothing. They were escorted through the compound to the main building, a large concrete structure built into the mountainside. Inside, the building was surprisingly luxurious. Expensive furniture and artwork decorated the halls. It looked more like a hotel than a military bunker. They were brought to a large room that had been set up like an office. Behind a massive desk sat Thomas Coleman. Thomas was a thin man in his 70s with white hair and intelligent eyes. He wore a cardigan sweater over a button-down shirt, looking every bit the harmless college professor. When he saw Sandra, he smiled sadly. "Sandra, my dear," he said in a gentle voice. "I'm so disappointed in you. I raised you better than this." "You raised me to value justice," Sandra shot back. "That's exactly what I'm doing." "Justice?" Thomas laughed softly. "You think exposing the architects is justice? You have no idea what you've done. The architect had kept America safe for decades. We prevented wars. We maintained stability. We protected the nation from enemies both foreign and domestic. You betrayed everything America stands for," Leon said coldly. "You've sold our country's secrets. You've murdered innocent people. You're a traitor." "I'm a patriot," Thomas corrected calmly. "I do what's necessary, not what's popular. Sometimes protecting a nation requires getting your hands dirty. You should understand that, Mr. President. You made difficult decisions too. I never betrayed my country." "Didn't you?" Thomas raised his eyebrows. "You let the architects continue operating for months after you discovered us. You could have arrested everyone immediately, but you didn't. You wanted to gather more evidence. You wanted to understand the full scope of our organization. How many people died in those months while you waited? How many secrets were sold while you played investigator?" Leon's jaw clenched. Thomas was hitting a nerve. It was true. Leon had waited before acting, and people had died because of that delay. "You feel guilty," Thomas observed. "Good. You should. You failed as a president. That's why we had to remove you. You were weak. You cared too much about rules and procedures. You couldn't do what was necessary." "Where's my daughter?" Leon demanded. "Lily is safe," Thomas said. "For now. She's in a secure room downstairs. Unharmed, I promise." I'm not a monster. You kidnapped an 8-year-old girl. That makes you a monster. I took leverage, Thomas corrected. There's a difference. I need you to understand something. Leon, the architects are bigger than you or me. We're a global organization with thousands of members. You've captured a few dozen people in Italy and arrested some others around the world. But most of us are still out there, and we're not going away. What do you want? Sandra asked. I want you both to disappear, Thomas said simply. Permanently. I want you to stop investigating us. Stop releasing evidence. Stop making noise. In exchange, I'll let Lily live. You're offering us a deal? Leon asked incredulously. I'm offering you survival, Thomas said. Look, I respect what you've done. You've been clever. You've hurt us badly. But the war is over. You've lost. The smart thing now is to accept that and move on with your lives. What kind of lives? Sandra asked bitterly. Hiding forever? Always looking over our shoulders? Knowing that you and the architects are out there, free to continue your crimes? Yes, Thomas said flatly. That's exactly the kind of life I'm offering. It's not ideal, but it beats being dead. Leon looked at his former professor with disgust. He had once admired Thomas Coleman, had taken classes from him before entering politics. Thomas had seemed like a wise, ethical man who cared about doing good in the world. Learning that it had all been an act was devastating. I have a counteroffer, Leon said. You give me Lily. You turn yourself in. You provide evidence against all the remaining architects. And maybe I won't kill you for touching my daughter. Thomas sighed. I was hoping you'd be reasonable, but I expected this response. You always were stubborn. He pressed a button on his desk. Guards came into the room, pointing guns at Leon and Sandra. 6 men, all armed with rifles. I'm going to make this very simple, Thomas said. You have 2 options. Option 1, you agree to my terms. You disappear. You stop fighting us. Lily grows up with her father. Option 2, you refuse. I kill you both right now. Lily becomes an orphan and gets adopted by one of my associates. She grows up never knowing the truth about what happened to her father. Which do you prefer? Leon and Sandra looked at each other. They were trapped, unarmed, surrounded by guards. There was no way to fight their way out of this. But then Sandra noticed something. One of the guards looked familiar. She had seen him before. He was one of her own team members. Maria had sent operatives to infiltrate Thomas's security force. Sandra had backup here. She gave Leon a tiny nod. Leon understood. They weren't actually trapped. They just needed to create a distraction. All right, Leon said, pretending to give up. We accept your terms. Let us see Lily first. Just make sure she's okay. Then we'll disappear like you want. Thomas smiled. A wise choice. Very well. Jenkins, bring the girl up. One of the guards left to get Lily. A few minutes later, the door opened again. Lily was pushed into the room. She looked scared but unharmed. When she saw her father, she ran toward him. Daddy, she cried. Leon caught her and held her tight. It's okay, baby. Everything's going to be okay. But Thomas shook his head. That's far enough. Jenkins, take the girl back downstairs. They can see her again once they've fulfilled their end of the bargain. The guard reached for Lily, but then something unexpected happened. The guard pulled out his gun and shot the 2 guards standing next to him. Not with bullets, with tranquilizer darts. Both guards collapsed immediately. What? Thomas started to say, but he was cut off as Maria Cortez burst through the door behind him with 2 more operatives. Chaos erupted. Sandra's infiltrators started fighting Thomas's guards. Leon grabbed Lily and dug behind the desk for cover. Sandra pulled out a small gun she had hidden in her boot. The guards hadn't searched thoroughly enough. Gunfire exploded in the room. Thomas tried to run, but Maria tackled him before he could reach the door. She pinned him down and put a gun to his head. Don't move, she ordered. The fight lasted about 30 seconds. Sandra's operatives were better trained and had the element of surprise. Thomas's remaining guards were quickly subdued. When the shooting stopped, Leon came out from behind the desk, still holding Lily. His daughter was crying, terrified by the violence. It's over, Leon told her softly. The bad people can't hurt us anymore. We're safe. Thomas was handcuffed and forced to sit in a chair. He looked at Sandra with something like admiration. I underestimated you, he said. You become quite the operator. I learned from the best, Sandra said coldly. Unfortunately, the best turned out to be a traitor. I'm a patriot, Thomas insisted. Everything I did was for America. You keep saying that, Leon said, but I don't think you believe anymore. I think you started out with good intentions. Maybe 40 years ago, you really did want to protect America. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about the country and started being about power, about control, about money. Thomas didn't respond. Maybe because he knew Leon was right. Here's what's going to happen, Leon continued. You're going to give us access to all the architect's files. Every name, every operation, every secret. You're going to help us dismantle the entire organization. And then you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, thinking about all the damage you caused. And if I refuse? Thomas asked. Then I'll do to you what you did to those 17 Secret Service agents who died in the coup, Leon said quietly. I'll make sure you don't survive. Thomas looked into Leon's eyes and saw that he wasn't bluffing. The former president was done playing nice. He would do whatever was necessary to protect his daughter and his country. Fine, Thomas said bitterly. I'll give you everything. But know this, the architects won't disappear just because you arrest some of us. The idea is too powerful. Someone else will rebuild the organization eventually. You can't kill an idea. Maybe not, Sandra said. But we can expose it. We can show the world what you really were. We can make sure everyone knows that the architects weren't patriots. You were traitors and murderers. We'll destroy your legacy. And that's worse than death for someone like you. Thomas's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing more. The next few days were a blur of activity. Sandra's team transported Thomas Coleman and his captured guards to a secure facility. The files Thomas had kept, decades worth of architect operations, were seized and analyzed. The information was staggering. The architects had infiltrated nearly every level of government. They had members in Congress, the military, intelligence agencies, corporations, and media organizations. They had been operating for 40 years, slowly accumulating power and influence. But now their secrets were exposed. Leon and Sandra worked with federal prosecutors to build cases against every architect they could identify. Arrests happened around the world. Some architects fled to countries without extradition treaties, but Sandra's operatives tracked them down anyway. This was not a legal operation anymore. This was justice by any means necessary. The media was in a frenzy. Every day brought new revelations about the depth of the architects' conspiracy. Public trust in government collapsed as people learned how thoroughly they had been betrayed. Protests erupted in major cities. Politicians who had been connected to the architects resigned in disgrace or were arrested. Leon stayed out of the public eye as much as possible. He gave one recorded statement explaining what had happened and why he had faked his death 3 years ago. He told the truth about the coup and the architect's attempt to kill him and his daughter. He provided evidence of everything he claimed. The response was overwhelming. Most people believed him and supported him. They called him a hero for exposing conspiracy. They demanded that he return to the presidency and finish his term. But Leon refused. He had no interest in going back to Washington. He had done what he needed to do. He had protected his daughter and brought the architects to justice. Now, he just wanted to live in peace. 2 weeks after the confrontation at Thomas Coleman's bunker, Leon and Sandra were sitting in a cafe in a small Swiss town. Lily was at a nearby table, drawing in her notebook and drinking hot chocolate. She seemed to be recovering from her traumatic experience. Children were resilient that way. What are you going to do now? Sandra asked Leon. I'm going to disappear again, Leon said. But for real this time. No more being found. Lily and I will move somewhere quiet. Maybe Canada. Maybe New Zealand. Somewhere far from all this. You could stay, Sandra suggested. Here in Switzerland. I have properties here. You'd be safe. I don't want to be safe, Leon said. I want to be invisible. I want Lily to grow up normal. I want her to go to regular school and make regular friends and never have to worry about conspiracies or assassins or her father's past. She's always going to know, Sandra pointed out. You're famous now. The whole world knows who you are and what you did. The world will forget, Leon said. People have short attention spans. In a year, there will be some new scandal to sip about. In 5 years, most people won't even remember my name. That's fine with me. I don't need to be remembered. I just need Lily to be happy. Sandra looked sad. So this is goodbye? I don't know, Leon said honestly. Maybe, or maybe not. You've been a good friend. Sandra, a good partner. You saved my life and my daughter's life. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, Sandra said. I did what was right. That's all. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking their coffee and watching Lily draw. It was peaceful here, far from the chaos in the rest of the world. What about you? Leon asked. What will you do? I'm going to rebuild my company, Sandra said. The architects nearly destroyed it when my connection to you was revealed. But I'm going to rebuild it even stronger than before. And I'm going to use it to hunt down the architects who escaped. The ones who fled to other countries. The ones who went underground. I'm going to find them all. That could take years, Leon said. I have years, Sandra replied. I have the rest of my life. I'm going to make sure the architects are completely destroyed. No remnants. No possibility of rebuilding. I'm going to erase them from existence. Be careful, Leon warned. Revenge can consume you. Trust me, I know. This isn't revenge, Sandra said. This is justice. There's a difference. Leon smiled slightly. You sound like me 3 years ago. Is that a bad thing? No, Leon admitted. But it's a hard thing. Justice is heavy. It weighs on you. Don't let it crush you. Sandra reached across the table and took Leon's hand. If it gets too heavy, maybe I'll come find you, wherever you're hiding. Maybe you can remind me why we did all this. To protect the innocent, Leon said. To stop the powerful from abusing the weak. To make sure our children inherit a better world than we did. Good reasons, Sandra agreed. Lily came over to their table, holding her notebook. Daddy, look what I drew. It was a picture of 3 people standing together, a man, a woman, and a little girl. They were smiling and holding hands. Above them, Lily had written in careful letters, My family. Leon felt his throat tighten with emotion. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Who's the lady? Lily asked, pointing to the female figure in her drawing. Leon glanced at Sandra, who looked surprised and touched. That's Sandra, he told his daughter. She's our friend. Is she going to come with us? Lily asked, To our new home? Leon looked at Sandra questioningly. Sandra looked back at him, and something passed between them, an understanding, a possibility, a hope. Maybe, Sandra said to Lily, if you and your dad would like that. I would like it, Lily said happily. You're nice, and you're brave. Daddy says you helped save me from the bad people. Your daddy saved you, Sandra said. I just helped a little. We save each other, Leon said, looking at Sandra. We make a good team. 3 months later, Leon, Sandra, and Lily were living in a small house on the coast of New Zealand. It was beautiful there, mountains and ocean and endless sky. Lily had started at the local school and was making friends. She was happy. Leon had gone back to carpentry. He had opened a small workshop where he made custom furniture. It didn't make much money, but it made him happy. He liked working with his hands. He liked creating beautiful things. Sandra had kept her promise. She continued hunting down architects around the world. But she came back to New Zealand every few weeks to be with Leon and Lily. Slowly, carefully, they were building something together. Not just a mission or a partnership, but a family. The world had moved on. Leon James was old news now. The trials of the architects were still ongoing, but public interest was fading. A new president had been sworn in. The government was reforming. Life was returning to normal. One evening, Leon and Sandra were sitting on their porch watching the sunset over the ocean. Lily was inside, doing homework. It was peaceful and quiet. Everything Leon had wanted. Do you ever miss it? Sandra asked. Being president. Having that power. No, Leon said without hesitation. I don't miss the power. I don't miss the politics or the pressure or the constant scrutiny. I just miss believing I can make a real difference. You did make a difference, Sandra reminded him. You exposed the architects. You saved your country from being sold piece by piece. You made a huge difference. Maybe, Leon said, but it came at such a high cost. Good people died. Families were destroyed. The country's trust in government is shattered. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it. It was worth it, Sandra said firmly. The alternative was letting the architects continue controlling everything. That would have been worse. Would it though? The architects kept things stable. They prevented wars and crises. Maybe their way was ugly, but it worked. No, Sandra said. It didn't work. It was an illusion of stability built on lies and murder. That's not real peace. That's just quiet oppression. Leon smiled at her. You're wise beyond your years. I learned from a good teacher, Sandra said, squeezing his hand. They sat together as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant orange and red. In the distance, they could hear Lily laughing at something on TV inside the house. It was a sound that made everything worth it. The fear, the pain, the sacrifice. All of it was worth it to hear his daughter laugh. I think we did the right thing, Leon said quietly. I know we did, Sandra replied. And in that moment, Leon James, former president of the United States, ghost president, carpenter, father, felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt at peace. The war was over. The architects were defeated. His daughter was safe and happy. He had found love again with an extraordinary woman who understood him completely. This was justice. This was what he had fought for. Not power or glory or revenge, but simply this, a quiet evening on a porch with a woman he loved, listening to his daughter laugh, watching the sunset over the ocean. Sometimes the greatest victory was just survival, just peace, just love. Leon James had been the most powerful man in the world once. Now, he was just a carpenter in New Zealand, and he had never been happier. This story teaches us several important lessons about life and leadership. First, true courage is not about having power, but about doing what is right even when it costs you everything. Leon gave up being president to protect his daughter, showing that family comes before fame or power. Second, we learn that corruption thrives in secrecy and dies in the light of truth. The architects controlled everything until their crimes were exposed to the world. Third, the story shows that judging people by their appearance or social status is wrong. The rich guests mocked Leon for being a poor carpenter, but he turned out to be the most important person in the room. Fourth, we see that revenge is not the same as justice. Leon could have killed his enemies, but instead he chose to expose them legally and let the courts decide their punishment. Finally, the story reminds us that real happiness comes from simple things like family, honest work, and peace, not from power, wealth, or fame. Leon was more content as a carpenter with his daughter and Sandra than he ever was as president, proving that love and purpose matter more than position or prestige. So let me ask you, did you subscribe yet? A lot of people will listen to this story and move on without ever subscribing. Please don't be that person, Dot. If you're still here, help me prove someone wrong. My dad said I wouldn't even hit 1,000 subscribers, but I believe these stories matter. Subscribe to the channel and help give a voice to stories that were never meant to stay silent. Point one last thing. Do you want a part 2?